Marcus Aurelius had a court full of people who praised him daily. He ignored most of them. What he paid attention to were his critics, the senators who resisted him, the philosophers who challenged him, the generals who doubted his decisions. He wrote in his private journal, "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane." He understood something most men never do: the people who hate you are paying far closer attention to you than the people who love you. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why your enemies are one of the most valuable sources of self-knowledge you have, how to extract that intelligence without letting it destroy you, and why ignoring them is one of the most expensive mistakes a man can make. Most men go through life surrounded by people who tell them what they want to hear. Friends soften the truth. Family filters it through love. But your enemies? They see your weaknesses with a clarity that no one who cares about you is willing to offer. If you don't learn how to use that, you're navigating without half your map. Your enemies observe you without the bias of affection, they see the patterns you've normalized. Frederick the Great of Prussia had a rival general who publicly mocked his early military campaigns as reckless and undisciplined. Frederick's friends dismissed this as jealousy. Frederick didn't. He studied the criticism, adjusted his logistics and troop positioning, and went on to win campaigns that are still taught in military academies. The rival's contempt was more useful than his admirers' applause. Affection creates blind spots. When someone cares about you, they unconsciously soften feedback to protect the relationship. Your enemies have no such incentive. They watch you with the cold objectivity of someone who wants to see you fail, and that objectivity, ironically, produces some of the most accurate observations you'll ever receive about your actual behavior, not the behavior you think you're displaying. The specific nature of an enemy's attack almost always reveals your real vulnerability. Nietzsche wrote extensively about how resentment works, how people attack in others what they most fear or envy. If a man is constantly ridiculed for being too intense or too serious, that's rarely just a random jab. It usually points to something real, either a genuine social friction he's creating, or a quality that genuinely threatens the people around him. Both are worth knowing. Theodore Roosevelt was called weak and sickly as a young man. Instead of dismissing it, he spent years rebuilding his body and temperament. His enemies handed him his purpose. Attacks are targeted. Nobody wastes energy mocking something that doesn't matter to them. When someone goes after a specific trait, your ambition, your silence, your confidence, they're circling something real. The question isn't whether to feel hurt. The question is, what is this revealing? Strip the malice out of the message and read what's left. Friends lie to you in slow motion, enemies tell you the truth all at once. Think about the last time a close friend told you something genuinely hard to hear. Now think about the last time an enemy or competitor said something cutting about you. Which one stung more? Which one stayed with you longer? Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we refuse to see. He argued that the people who irritate or oppose us most strongly are often carrying a mirror. The sharp comment from someone who dislikes you lands harder precisely because some part of your nervous system recognizes it as accurate. Friendship optimizes for continuity. The social contract between friends involves a degree of mutual flattery: you protect my ego, I protect yours. Over time, this creates a distorted picture. Your enemies have no such contract. They're not managing your feelings. That absence of social lubrication means the signal, however unpleasant, is often cleaner. This doesn't mean enemies are right about everything. It means the information they deliver is worth examining before you dismiss it. How a man responds to his enemies reveals his actual character, not his ideal self-image. Seneca wrote to Lucilius, "It is not that I am brave, it is that I know what is worth fearing." Most men discover who they actually are under opposition, not comfort. Abraham Lincoln famously appointed his rivals to his cabinet, men who had publicly humiliated him, who considered him unqualified. He didn't do it out of forgiveness. He did it because he understood that men who had opposed him were useful precisely because they weren't dependent on his approval. They would tell him the truth when it mattered. Comfort reveals your preferences. Adversity reveals your defaults. The man you are when someone is attacking you, undermining you, or competing against you, that's the man you've actually built. not the man you intend to be on your best day. This is why serious men study their own reactions to enemies as carefully as they study the enemies themselves. The reaction is data. Using your enemies as feedback requires separating the signal from the delivery. Epictetus was enslaved for most of his life. His owner once broke his leg as a demonstration of power. Epictetus reportedly looked at him calmly and said, "You will break it." Then, when it broke, he said, "Did I not tell you so?" He didn't absorb the cruelty, but he also didn't waste energy on rage. He processed what was happening with complete clarity. That separation between what is being done to you and what you choose to do with it is the skill. Modern version: your business competitor publicly trashes your work. The delivery is hostile. But inside that hostility, there may be a legitimate point about your product, your positioning, or your blind spots. Mine it. Most men either absorb enemy feedback and let it destabilize them, or they dismiss it entirely to protect their ego. Both responses waste the intelligence. The trained response is to quarantine the emotional delivery and examine the content. Ask, if a neutral third party said this exact thing, would I consider it? If the answer is yes, then the fact that an enemy said it is irrelevant to whether it's true. 3 things to take from this. First, your enemies watch you without the filter of affection, they see the patterns you've normalized and stop seeing yourself. Second, the specific nature of an attack almost always points to a real vulnerability worth examining, not dismissing. And third, using that intelligence requires one skill above all others: separating the signal from the delivery. The message from the malice. What they're saying from how they're saying it. Marcus Aurelius didn't become one of the most self-aware men in recorded history by surrounding himself with admirers. He did it by taking opposition seriously. You can do the same. If this resonated, subscribe. We drop one every Tuesday and Friday. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send it to them. That's how this channel grows one man at a time.